Yeah, Vijeta, we can begin, I guess.
2 minutes.
Yeah, okay.
I'm
Okay.
just clicking on the live streaming thing. I
Oh, okay.
go ahead, sir.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Good afternoon, everyone. While we begin the live streaming, uh, just quick few requests. People who are not speaking, if you could please be on mute, and that this session is going to be recorded and made available for people from other countries who might not be able to join at this hour. So, request you that if you could post your questions on the chat, and myself and the moderators, others, we will see that we are able to take the questions in the end. Yeah. So, Vijeta, we can begin. Hello.
Yeah, we can get started.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
We can start with it.
Yeah. So, good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Incubate Hub, I welcome everyone. Uh, Thanks for taking out time and coming over and showing your interest over here. This is yet another session, of webinars, and today we have a very exciting session. We have from our partner startup, Indicus, who is going to be presenting, data localization, how it is creating multi-million dollar revenue opportunities for regional ISPs, data centers, and telcos. Indicus provides the monetization and cloud management solutions to build a regional cloud services business. Now, what topics we are going to cover today are, what is data localization? What does it mean for the cloud industry per se? Now, localization is not just about compliance. What and where are the gaps? The scale of the demand gap. Who can fill this gap and why and how? You know, this obviously there'll be a lot of focus around the case studies, and I'm sure Surando and team would be able to walk us through with very exciting case studies. How can Indicus help in setting up a cloud infrastructure, right? And at the end, we'll have at least around 10 to 15 minutes of interactive Q&A session. I would just like to give a brief about Sunando. Sunando Bhattacharya, today's speaker. He's founder and CEO Indicus. About Sunando, he has got about 20 years plus of experience in ICT and IT service space. Has led teams in business strategy, sales, alliances, product development, and pre-sales. He comes with all the background which could be needed for the exciting, company he is leading. Indicus was founded in 213 and has helped major service providers in emerging markets in launching their public cloud services. And so over to you, Sunando, you can start with your presentation.
Hey Uday, many thanks for the lovely introduction. And thanks everyone for taking out time and joining for this session. This is a topic which is something which I am very passionate about, and as a company, we have been driving the whole thought process around data localization with our customers, prospects, contacts, influencers, many communities at a global level. And there are there are many ways to address the problem of data localization, and we are addressing it in one aspect, and there are similar companies out there who are addressing it in different aspects. But it is really becoming a big issue right now, especially for smaller markets where availability of quality IT infrastructure is not there. So as governments are increasingly realizing that data is the key to the future, and it is no longer just user data and its security around it. It is now also of strategic importance to countries, and therefore the laws which are coming out and all. So what I intend to cover in this session is give you a good overview about what is data localization, what's its importance, and then get into the aspects of how we address this problem. And I would love to have your questions at the end, and share whatever I have been able to build an understanding on this subject over the last 3-4 years. So I'll skip the first two slides which I had, which was about the agenda and my introduction, because that's already been done by Uday. Um, so I'll do straight away jump into the whole concept of data localization. So data localization essentially pertains to a specific kind of data, what we call personally identifiable data, or PII. So it is required when a business is mandated to store this personally identifiable data of the citizens of a certain organization, or the companies in a certain country, citizens of a certain country or companies in a certain country within the country itself. So let's say in the case of India now, the laws are coming in place, or have recently come in place, where all data which is personally identifiable information in any country in of Indian citizens should be stored in India. Now the whole furor around data localization started when GDPR came about in Europe a few years back, and that's what really took off this whole drive globally. Uh, if you look at, so there's a UN study done by UNCTAD every year. The report comes out in February every year. This year's report I don't think is out yet, but this is data as per last February. And there are about 140 countries which are either having legislations in place, or at least a draft legislation in place for data security and data sovereignty. And all these laws which are being brought in has an underlying theme of data localization, because until and unless the data is not hosted inside the country, you cannot enact any laws to govern them. So data localization is essentially a precursor for these laws. Now, to give you an understanding of the progression, since I've been tracking this over the last 3-4 years, in the year 2017, the number was below 100. There were about 100, less than 100 countries which were having legislations or draft legislations in place. And last year, this number touched 140. We don't know what would be the number this year, but last year. So this shows the increasing importance that governments are putting around data being hosted in country, and laws being put in place for data protection and data privacy. Now, that was one aspect of the story. So globally, there are approximately 195 countries. But if you look at the large cloud providers, and when you think cloud, you think AWS, Google, Azure, Alibaba, IBM, and the likes. These are only present in about 30 odd countries. This is a slightly dated slide. So this number has actually gone up in the last couple of years. It's about 30 odd countries. So that means that more than 150 countries, or if I look at just the 140 countries which have laws in place, and you take out about 30 countries of that, so more than 100 countries today don't have high quality cloud infrastructure in country, and there are laws which now require their companies in those countries to host the data in country. So this is the essentially the problem statement that we are trying to solve, which is how do we enable service providers and enterprises in these countries address the problem of data localization. Now, localization is not just compliance. It is not just related to personally identifiable data. It goes well beyond that. First and foremost is the localization, localized billing, where governments want to have tax laws applicable to them. And when there are forex payments, there are tax law issues. And especially in regions like Africa, where there is a huge fluctuation on forex rates, when enterprise is paying its monthly cloud bills or any kind of international payments, the value can change drastically every month based on the actual forex rate fluctuation. Second is, of course, user experience. Now, if you look at the context of India, let's say 10 years back, or 15 years back, when 80% of our data was hosted outside the country, most likely in Europe or US, the user experience on any of the websites was pathetic. I remember the days way back in year 2000 when you could actually open hotmail.com and go and have a cup of tea, and by the time the site would open. From there today, we're at 90-95% data is locally hosted in country, and therefore there's an amazing user experience that you get on any website that you use on a daily basis. So the direct impact of latency on that user experience is very, very important, and that can only be achieved when the application is actually hosted at the location where the user is based. Third is the personalization and local accessibility. Every country has their own language, their own preferences, their own nuances around how the user experience should be there. In terms of user onboarding, there are different laws in every country. In terms of data management, there are different laws in every country. So that level of personalization and local accessibility is also required. And when you take all these things in the larger context of hyperscalers, they are only partially compliant from these aspects. Until unless they are locally based, they cannot give local billing. They typically built either directly in foreign exchange or through a partner which has its own challenges. User experience, again, beyond the countries where they are directly present, latency is high, therefore the performance issues come. And then from a local country perspective, there's a lot of latent demand from local users, local providers, and the local service providers, the local telcos, ISPs, data centers in these countries are actually best placed to address this local latent demand from startups, from enterprises in all these countries. The cloud demand can be very easily addressed by the local service providers. Now, if you look at the impact on the cloud industry, uh, when you look at from a context of an enterprise or a service provider in each region, there are 3-4 key areas that they need to focus on. One is obviously managing all the compliances that are there at a local level. Second is the whole economies of scale, and how do you deliver that along with localization. That's a very, very key aspect. When you think of Amazon, you're thinking thousands and hundreds and thousands of servers located in a data center. Obviously, a telco cannot set that up in his country, and therefore he cannot compete at that level, at a hyperscale level. So how can he create niches for himself and deliver the services with a localized flavoring? Then beyond that, going to multi-cloud management. So there is a place for hyperscalers even with data localization, because not all types of data need to be localized, only personally identifiable information. And there are use cases like big data and AI ML and all, which are better run on hyperscale clouds, because there you need, for a very short period, a very high amount of compute and storage capacity, which is not commercially feasible for a local telco to operate, especially in emerging markets. So therefore, the need for having a multi-cloud management is also very, very key. And when you get into these smaller markets, there are a lot of laws and systems and processes which enterprises have around governance and control of how any commercial transaction takes place. They just cannot simply go and put a credit card on a cloud system and keep on charging their cloud bills on that. There's a formal process of issuing purchase orders and approvals for every order and all. So there's a governance and control complexity which also comes in addition to that. So now, when providing data localized cloud services in these countries, the challenges which typically you face, which we see in emerging markets, and we are today working across markets in Southeast Asia, Middle East, Eastern Europe, Africa, and Latin America, and some of the standard themes that we see across the board are these, which is number one, technology knowledge. Availability of quality technical manpower in these markets is very, very poor. Then access to industries, connecting to people from various industries is a challenge. The sales guys locally don't have much cloud selling experience. They are more transactional sales guys, selling selling internet lines and phone lines and all. They don't really understand how to sell cloud solutions. And then from there you go into the resource deployment challenges, having quality data center infrastructure and delivering a complete cloud stack and not just a glorified virtualization stack to the end user. That is a key challenge. And when you look at a context of let's say in Africa, where it may not be feasible to have a central data center in each country, and you have to cover multiple geographies from a central cloud site and then deliver on multiple compliance, that also has its own nuances to deliver. And lastly, of course, the security and ownership issues. Cloud is inherently perceived as insecure, which is of course not the case. But in India, if you look at a perception index, which has obviously improved over the last 5 to 7 years, but countries are 5 to 7 years behind India in terms of their technology maturity. So the perception is still there that cloud is essentially insecure. So how do you convince the end user that this cloud stack is secure and it takes care of all the user issues effectively? Now, coming to the other side of the spectrum, which is the scale of demand. Now, what we get to hear a lot of times is that in smaller countries the demand is not there. Obviously, when you look at the context from developed markets and hyperscalers, obviously that scale of demand is not there. Had it been there, the hyperscalers would have gone there. Typically, what I've seen, a hyperscaler enters a market and only when there is a business potential of about $500 million up to $1 billion. That is the range in which all these big guys go and set up a cloud node in cloud region in any country. But even if it's not 500 million, typically most countries we have a business potential of anywhere between 50 to $250 million in the emerging markets very comfortably. Banks exist in all markets. Healthcare is big in every sector. Startups are coming up in all the markets globally. Government has its own needs for data processing and data storage. Fintech companies, which is essentially an extension of BFSI, have huge needs for data management. And education sector, obviously, there have always been a big driver of technology adoption. So these are the key sectors that we see in every market driving very heavy adoption of cloud. And I have a case study at the end where I'll tell you how one of our customers have progressed in the last about 4 years, and today they're the largest cloud provider in their country, and it's a very tiny country I will talk about. So as I said, the local service providers, the telcos, data centers, ISPs are the best place to fill this entire gap. Uh, they can offer local cloud services, which is hosted in country, and that is for any mission critical, any core systems which host personally identifiable data, but can be managed at a smaller scale of cloud. And then they can partner with the large cloud guys like AWS, Google, Azure, Huawei, so on and so forth, and sell these services, their services also, along with providing their own local cloud services. It's a always a combo solution that we suggest our partners go for. Now, Again, coming to why the service providers, they are truly data law compliant and they have got complete enterprise customer ready market. They are already servicing enterprise customers in their local geography through data services, voice services, etc. So they have the ready customer base to go and sell these services to. The sales and marketing channels are essentially common. Any enterprise sales guy who's selling telecom services can go and sell cloud services also. Plus, they have already got a support mechanism to do 24 by 7 support. They only need skilling up to provide any support around cloud services. The two key assets or the three key assets that you need to deliver cloud, which is hardware, data center, and internet, they're already available with them. So for them, the incremental investment to start cloud is minimal, and therefore they're able to go to market very quickly. If it's a complete greenfield provider, first is to go and do a complete business case for the entire capex around data structure infrastructure, connectivity infrastructure, and hardware, and then only they can go to market with a cloud service. Whereas in this case, we have seen cloud providers from deployment start to go live in about 4 to 6 weeks. So that fast you can actually launch your cloud services. Now that's all about the theory side of things. What I'll now go on to is a couple of use cases, and that will really I'll share our experience with both these customers, actually three customers, and how we have helped them become prominent cloud players in their market. First is there's sorry, there's a spelling mistake here. A leading telco in Oman. Now, Oman is a small market in Middle East, and it's not like Dubai or UAE or Saudi Arabia, which is a booming economy, but there are a lot of local enterprises, and it's a fairly large scale setup that we see in that country. So we set up a cloud with one of the local telcos there, one of the leading telcos there about 3.5, 4 years back. And at that time, they were the first public cloud provider in that country. Literally, there was no other cloud provider who was there at that time. Since then, two more have come up, but they are still the largest in the market. Now, when they went live, the whole concept of cloud had not yet sunk in with either they themselves, but they wanted to do it because they saw potential here. So there was some forward thinking from the customer side also, and even from the customers, from their customers, the enterprise customers and the government bodies and all. So the first year of the business, they spent in a lot of education. Sorry, they went and met all the ministries, all the government enterprises, and told them about why they should be using cloud infrastructure to deliver services, and how they can help reduce capex, how they can get resources on demand, etc., etc. And similarly went to the enterprise side and sold on the benefits of having data localization, how they can comply to local laws and uh, do the meet all the benefits which I spoke about, which is latency, local billing, etc., etc. Now, from there, the first year was very tough for them because the market was, they were early to the market, so as to speak. But once they started getting the first adoptions, which happened within the first 3, 4 months, and then literally the ball started rolling. Uh, Today, they are running a very, very large setup. To give you a context of their setup, while we obviously being an external provider don't really know their billing value because that's confidential data, but our billing value with them has grown by about 5x over the last 3 years, which means that the setup which they had started with, that has grown about 5x in the last 3 to 4 years, which is a massive growth from any cloud provider's perspective. So much so that today they have spun out the cloud and data center business as a separate entity, and they have a very, very high focus area in this space, and they are looking to spin out more and more services in the cloud domain. And there are dominant market share today. They have more than 50% market share in the local market, and it's one of the key revenue lines today, and one of the fastest growing revenue lines for them in the country. Now, from there, I'll move to a very, very small country. Literally, it's from a GDP perspective, it's one of the poorest countries in Asia, which is Nepal. It's, I think, slightly above Afghanistan from a GDP perspective. Now, there's a large local ISP in Nepal called Subisu. It's one of the largest private ISPs in Nepal. And Data Hub is a sort of a joint venture between Subisu and a couple of other local entities. Now, Data Hub was, when we met them again, I think 2016 or 17, they were just running a simple data center, co-locating servers for their customers, and very very plain vanilla business. And we spent a lot of time with their management, explaining them the opportunity, how it works, etc., etc. So they went live again somewhere mid 2017. So that's about 3.5 years back. And again, what stupendous growth they have seen in the market. Today, not only they run the largest cloud, and there they have almost 70% market share, and they're since COVID, they're growing at almost 40% rate every quarter. A huge growth curve we are seeing over there, especially since COVID. And along with that, they've also been able to establish a very large market for enterprise hybrid clouds. Today, they host the entire Nepal Stock Exchange brokerage system. They host a very large payment solutions company, something like what Paytm is in India, a company called PrabhuPay. They host one of the largest airlines in Nepal today. All this in a hybrid cloud model. So along with building a very, very large public cloud business, they've been able to, in parallel, build a very large hybrid cloud business also. And what essentially it's helping them to do is increasing their revenue per rack from a traditional colocation business by a factor of at least 3 to 5x. So if in a colocation business a rack was yielding $100 of revenue per rack, here they're able to yield about $500 to $600 per rack, which is a huge jump from a certain infrastructure investment. And they're heavily investing now. They've upgraded a lot of their hardware infrastructure, and they're going very, very big in the cloud segment today. And we are very, very happy to partner with them. They are one of our biggest proponents in the market. They help us with a lot of new technologies. They come to us with a lot of demands for new solutions, and we're more than happy to work with them. Coming to the last case study, this is one of the newer customers who we have onboarded. This is a company called Axiom in Rwanda. Now, Rwanda is positioning themselves as a Singapore of Africa. They are a business and technology hub, finance hub in Africa. And the government is really, really focusing on building strong infrastructure solutions in the country. So Axiom came to us sometime right before COVID, and we signed the contract. But unfortunately, by the time we could get to implementation, the lockdown happened, and we couldn't start the implementation till almost, I think, August or September. And they finally went live, I think, 1st of October last year. And again, first cloud provider in public cloud provider in Rwanda. Huge adoption we are seeing from local enterprises, startups, government entities, so much so that now they're talking to the government to set up a dedicated cloud region for government entities where only government customers would be hosted. So a lot of potential again in the market, and again a very, very tiny country in Africa where we are seeing these huge surge of demand. So the notion which I want to, which I hear from a lot of people, that cloud is only meant for larger geographies, developed markets. That's not the case. Cloud is just simplified infrastructure, simplified IT infrastructure, and everybody wants simplified IT infrastructure. And especially after COVID, where people had huge challenges running their own data centers, especially in smaller markets, people now want a managed service as far as infrastructure is concerned, and they only want to manage their services at an application level and not at an infrastructure level. So therefore, uh, uh, setting up cloud in emerging markets is really becoming a very, very profitable and multi-million-dollar opportunity for these providers. Now, all this is fine. Where do we come in, and how do we help service providers in this setup? So our perspective to this is not just technology. We think of it from a 360-degree solution. To run cloud, you essentially need three things. You need a strong interface to engage your customer, which is the management platform. You need a strong underlying stack to run the service, which is cost effective as well as able to deliver the best of SLAs to your customer. And then the entire business enablement around it, which is enabling to sell this entire solution to the end customers. These are the three areas that we felt that all our customers needed help on. So rather than splitting it up and just focusing on one aspect, we said we'll take up the entire stack as we see in terms of need for the customer and take it to the customer as an integrated solution. So today we are not a software company, we're not a services company, we're not a consulting company. We call ourselves a platform company. We give an entire platform solution to the customer, which includes software, which is the cloud management platform, which we call Apiculus. We give a complete managed services stack on an SLA to the customer, which is a services element part, and then the entire business enablement and consulting, which is engaging with their teams to help them go and sell more in the customer. And we do it in the form of product management support, marketing support, sales trainings, pre-sale support, etc. And it's an ongoing engagement. It's not a one-time thing that we do. What the way we see ourselves, essentially we are a partner to the end user, and we in our objective is to help them win business, because the more business they get, obviously that impacts our revenue potential directly, and essentially create a win-win relationship with our customers. So this is in a nutshell what we do. But the other aspect of this is also enterprises. Now, there are a lot of places where we see that we are not able to identify local service providers, or there are not enough people who want to set up cloud services, or the enterprises are large enough to run their own systems, and they either they are mandated by law, or they need to set up their own systems and run it more like a private cloud use case. So there also our entire solution stack we have been able to deliver. We are working with large BFSI companies, fintech companies. The two largest airports in India have been, the entire cloud system has been done by us. We've got some engagements in healthcare, education, government. Again, the six key sectors I spoke about earlier in terms of cloud adoption and need for secure infrastructure. We can give an end-to-end solution with a managed SLA. So it's like running a private cloud, but the experience of a public cloud where everything is managed for you, what we call a managed private cloud offering. And the most interesting part for us is that we have built this entire solution stack on open source technologies. So vis-a-vis some of the proprietary stacks out there, which are used for virtualization and cloud, we effectively work out to be about 40 to 60% cheaper, depending on scale. And that delivers terrific value to our customers. And we are able to give an SLA on an open source stack, which is what our end customers need. Lastly, why us? It's, I would say, our domain experience is our biggest reason why anyone should work with us. We have been in this field for it's our 8th year running, and we have been running multiple in-country clouds across the globe today, managing it all, providing an SLA. And the architecture of our system is that we can start with a very, very small setup, which runs only about 100 and 200 VMs, to a scale where we can run tens of thousands of VM on the same infrastructure. So from a design perspective, we have made it a very, very, very scalable design, and users can leverage that to start small and then grow as per demand. And lastly, we are not just a tech company. We believe that the challenges are which the service provider would face are not just technology, but business also. Therefore, the entire business consulting is weaved into the whole solution. And we are not just here to support the customer on the tech side, but also help him win business from his customers. I'll stop here. That will be the end of my session. I'm open to questions now.
Thanks, Sunanda. That was really awesome, to know the whole insights around this whole amazing business opportunity. and the space itself is so exciting, in terms of what you could possibly create from your consulting as well as implementation. I have a quick question here. In terms of what do you think typically when you say that the telcos and the ISPs are ready with the internet hardware and infrastructure and all, time to really set this up and train them and get them properly onboarded and ready.
Yeah. So if all the infrastructure is available with them, we need about 4 weeks to get everything going. That's it. It's a very standardized deployment that we have. We automated the entire deployment stack at our end, and most of the time is actually used in testing then deployment. Deployment is very quick, but then because it's going to be a production grade infrastructure, we spend a lot of time testing the infrastructure. And while all that is happening, our enablement exercise also goes alongside. So we actually, what we do is we run an accelerator program for our customers. It's a 1 month program through which we take them through multiple phases on business enablement, on product, on marketing, etc., etc. And post that 1 month, they're ready to go and start selling cloud services in the market. And then on an ongoing basis, on one side, we are supporting and managing the entire infrastructure that we have deployed and providing SLA on that. And on the other side, supporting our customers through pre-sales support and consulting support for handling any complex opportunities in the market.
Thanks. That is really awesome in terms of such a quick time to market, right? And I think that's a big USP for anyone to really leverage. Looking at your numbers in terms of how the numbers on the racks have gone up, I'm sure the payback period as well seems to be pretty low here, right? If you'd like to just quickly give any peek into that.
Yeah. So we've done multiple business cases for our customers, and from a break-even, operational break-even happens in under 12 months, anywhere between 8 to 12 months. And the capex break-even, because the turnaround is very fast, we have seen in between 18 to 22 months. That's the range within which the capex break-even happens, which is phenomenal from a infrastructure business perspective. Typically, infrastructure business capex break-evens don't happen before 5 to 7 years.
Awesome. I think in comparison to any other capital intensive businesses, I think this stands out very clear as a very resounding proposition.
Absolutely, it does. Yeah, and business
Okay.
cases are amazing. Sometimes, are when we have built it for them, and even after doing significant amount of sensitivity analysis on those business cases, the ROI is IRR, 5 year IRR touches 90%.
Oh, awesome. So that's very healthy IRR.
Yes.
And so government, I'm sure, would be the early adopters, and that might be another impetus for any ISP to really start looking at setting up this infrastructure, right? Maybe.
Absolutely. Government is one of the, government. See, challenge with government bodies globally is that they don't have quality in-house expertise to run such services. They depend on external vendors, and they are the first guys who need localization. So when anyone sets up local clouds, first thing I tell them is go and use your influence in the government and position this as a local cloud. And if needed, you can also propose a dedicated zone. Like in US, you have the Gov cloud run by there's one region run by Amazon, there's one region run by Azure. So something very similar, obviously at a much smaller scale, a micro scale, I would say. I recommend my customers go and engage with government bodies and tell them upfront that if you give us business, we'll set up a dedicated region for you, and that really works wonders.
Awesome. I think that itself is a very good beginning to start getting, ROIs and, I would say, any typical focus verticals which you feel in any new geography when you set this up, you would like that, where you see a traction,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Absolutely. So there also we have seen a pattern in terms of adoption. In any country, the first adopters are the tech-heavy companies, the startups, the ITS verticals, and then government also, because government by compliance they would need that. So they are always the early adopters. First 6 to 12 months, we see these are the companies, media companies also are the ones who will come and adopt cloud services. Once a period of about 1 year have passed and you have made a name for yourself in the market, is the time when large enterprises, BFSI, healthcare, these are guys a bit wary to be early adopters in any market, we have typically seen that they take 6 to 12 months to come and adopt local cloud services. But once they start adopting, they become the bigger buyers of cloud services because their needs and demands are much higher. And they will not just buy public cloud capacity from you, they'll also expect you to set up hybrid clouds for them.
Awesome. Needless to ask, and I mean, it is already a time-tested solution from you, having implemented in multiple countries. Yet, I would like to just, be curious to know that, in terms of having tested this on multiple hardwares, right? Hardware platforms, and the
Right,
OEMs
right.
who could be giving that. I'm sure you would have had a good amount of close working relationships with the OEMs as well on the hardware side, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So we work very very closely with HPE. So HPE is running a accelerator program currently, the first time in India, and they've selected 8 startups for it, and we are one of them. I see Chandra here from HPE on the call. So Chandra is the person who's driving that entire initiative for HPE. Then we also have a working relationship with Dell, with Huawei, with Supermicro, and a few other of these storage OEMs and all. From by design, we are completely hardware agnostic. But what we feel is that we need to recommend a certain architecture to our customers. So for that, we are currently working very closely with HP. But along with that, we also, as in, we give a very generic BOQ to our customers, and they are open to buy from any vendor. There's no vendor lock-in at any level,
Correct.
and we are just enabling a certain level of standardization from there.
Thanks. I think that's pretty good in terms of being agnostic as well as having worked with almost quite a few of them. It makes you to be able to go to any geography at ease, I would say.
Right, right. Sure.
Okay. Vijeta, you have any other questions there? Or if anyone is keen to possibly unmute himself or herself and ask any question, kindly do that, please. Okay. I guess I think Sunando, this one.
No,
Or
no,
if
there.
anyone is keen
Yeah.
to possibly.
Hello, this is Emre. Thanks for a great presentation and congratulations, very exciting. I've
Thank you.
noticed in your presentation you mentioned airports, like
Right.
India's 2 largest
I
airports.
think.
Yes.
I used to run Wipro's airport practice. I
Oh,
helped them
interesting.
win. I helped them win Toronto, then Montreal. Introduced
Amazing.
Montreal anyway, and at the time we were discussing a lot about cloud, and airports were like either way concerned, but also interested. So you mentioned, is this Delhi and Mumbai? I mean, could you
This is
confirm?
Delhi and Hyderabad.
Oh, Delhi and Hyderabad. Okay, interesting. So
And
okay,
we're
I
working,
think
if
we
you,
work with airports, and we can introduce this if there are case studies. This is one part. Second part, we work with digital logistics and end-to-end logistics chain, air cargo, maritime cargo, and so on. Community solutions.
right,
And the cloud is often on the cards, and then there is
right,
often concerns that the data needs to stay in the country, and then especially when you talk about logistics, cross-country,
right.
So your experience is quite interesting there. We can also perhaps discuss that further.
Sure, we would be more than happy to discuss the use cases and see what we can do there.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Emre, for that. I think I'm
Thanks.
sure we would connect up soon. Yeah, it's Sunando. Sure. So I think this was very engaging and very nice session, Sunando. Thanks a lot. If there's any other last question, I may want to take that. I mean, if anyone wants to ask any question, but I guess we almost pretty covered most of it. And I'm sure. Thanks a lot for your time, and looking forward to see how we could work closely to further this whole initiative and partnership, and happy to really see that we are able to have this also be available on demand, this recorded session for other countries as well, and we would see that we are able to uh, get back to you on how the response has been. So this is just great, and I think thanks, and again wishing you all the best.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining.